It's my great pleasure to introduce Ambassador Ron Kirk, the United States Trade Representative, to open our summit. Ambassador Kirk has a long history of public service in the Texas state government and as a mayor of the great city of Dallas. By being mayor, he knows what it means to run something, to have the operational responsibility to deliver results. And through his great service in the public arena, combined with a number of years in the private sector, he understands the issues of business and of trade and of policy. His service in the last 3 years to the U.S. government in the areas of trade, I think, will in many ways define his career. And we in the services sector are really the great beneficiaries of that. And he's shown that commitment both in words and in deeds. When Ambassador Kirk arrived on the job in 2009, the U.S. government and frankly governments all over the world were faced with the tough assignment of trying to take Doha to conclusion. And that process, as hard as it was worked, we understand the limitations and the result. But Ron Kirk didn't stop at that. He understood that there was much, much more left to do, even beyond Doha. And he pivoted the position of, as many of our ambassadors in the room did, to find ways to create more promising results in the areas of trade. And I know the ambassador will talk about some of these in his few comments, but we're the beneficiaries of that in the services sector and frankly in the global economy. As Bill said, and Bob and Peter, this is our 4th annual summit. And it's the 4th time that Ambassador Ron Kirk has served as our keynote speaker. And that speaks to his commitment to what we do. It's a personal commitment to our cause and to creation of a global economy that is more effective, and a signal to the place services plays in the entire trade liberalization agenda. We all understand that services makes up the largest share of the global economy. We all understand that over the years services was too far down the chain in dialogue. But now, under the leadership of Ambassador Ron Kirk and many of our ambassadors in the world, those days are over. And so I ask you to join me in welcoming Ambassador Ron Kirk to deliver our keynote address.
Well, Sam, thank you to my new best friend. I appreciate your kind words. That was a ridiculously generous introduction. I especially want to thank my colleagues in the trade ministry who have joined us. Having served in this job now almost 4 years, I fully understand just almost the ridiculous demands on their time and travel. And every one of them has 5 of the places they could be rather than here, but the fact that they have chose here, and that many of them have come to this every year, I think is a great testament to this organization and your work, but also the importance that they put on this. So first of all, I thank all of my colleagues for making the effort and the time and the commitment to join us for this. I also would like to join the Bob Vastine testimonial. Everything's been said, but Bob was one of the very first people to visit me when I took on this responsibility as U.S. Trade Representative, and helped me to quickly understand the importance of your industries and this issue, not just to the global services industry, but to our economy and to the United States. And Bob has been there every step of the way, every time we've ever needed him. I'd like to think I'm not responsible for too many of those late calls, but whenever we called and asked Bob to do anything, he's been there for us as he has been there for you. And Bob, we wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors, but I think you can pretty quickly amuse yourself with the notion that you're free of this industry. You know, we'll all be calling on you frequently to do that. Secondly, you know, as part of the USTR family, we could not be more proud of your new leader than we are, Peter Allgaier. When I came into office, this was all very new to me. I've never served in the federal government. We're going through transition, and I called Mickey Cantor, I called Sue Schwab, and I called everyone, and they all said, whatever you do, just get Peter Allgaier to stay for a while. And at that time, he was serving as our ambassador in Geneva, and he has led us in so many ways, always with an intellect and a dignity, and I challenge our staff all the time. When you think of best in class in terms of federal employees, you always come up with the name Peter Allgaier. I could not have a higher regard for him, for his professional judgment, but based on his comments about my being our starting center, you can understand why I don't have much respect for his basketball judgment. If I'm our starting center, it'll pretty much mirror my career in high school. When I loved playing basketball, but I kept insisting because I actually could dunk. And my coach finally told me, says, you know, you can dunk every once in a while, Kirk. But at 6'1", you're not going to dunk on Wayland Clark very much. And he said, I got a better idea. You're not a bad shooter. Why don't you come outside and take the open shot? And I say this is what I hope you think is what a tactful change to our topic in terms of looking at the work we're doing in the service industry. It is our collective plea to the world to take the open shot. In a world in which we're looking for economic activity and new ways to spur economic growth, I think our collective message, when you cut through everything else, this is a huge opportunity to spur economic and job growth by harnessing and grabbing the potential and understanding the power of the integration of services to our overall economy. And if we don't fear what that means, it is an open shot for just about every economy in this room with explosive potential, which you'll hear about from so many of our colleagues. From smartphones in the palm of our hands to supply chains that stretch around the globe, we all know now that goods and services are increasingly hard to separate. At the same time, barriers to the flow of services across these borders can have a horribly negative impact on producers, whether they're in manufacturing or in agriculture. Missed emails, calls, connections, shipments, or payments can lead to not only angry customers, but lost sales, less growth, and ultimately fewer jobs in any industry, in any country. To avoid these pitfalls and maximize the job building benefits of trade, as Sam and so many others have suggested, we need policies that will enable and amplify economic growth and not limit it. And that's what we're attempting to do in this coalition between you and those of us who have the rare responsibility and unique opportunity and privilege to try to set policy within the WTO and others. It's one of the reasons the United States is so firmly committed to partnering with a number of our like-minded partners within the WTO to explore a new international services agreement. I was trying to think in my mind of examples I could give you of how differently the world was in 1995 in terms of the application of technology than what it is today. So much of what we use today, we could not have imagined in 1995. And we need a system now that allows the incorporation of that and the free flow of that into the global economy, but more importantly, that is open enough and flexible enough in its architecture that we can accommodate the new technologies and the new services that are going to exist 10 years from now or 5 years from now, since the innovation chain, since it's sped up, and allow those to be traded freely as well. We are excited about this initiative, and we are excited about the opportunity to take a fresh look at services, which is long overdue. As many of you have referenced, the GATS agreement was concluded almost 18 years ago. Since then, more critically, there have been over 100 bilateral or regional trade agreements. Now, to be sure, many of these bilateral and regional agreements have improved and built on the GATS by going deeper into certain areas, but they've also created a policy backdrop surrounding global services trade that looks more like a patchwork quilt or spaghetti bowl than it does a rational path forward to trade liberalization. Now, we believe the ISA presents some significant new opportunities for us. One, we can have a more thoughtful, honest examination of what is worked in services agreements. Secondly, we can consolidate the most effective of these and build these into a single coherent framework. And third, we obviously want to extend that framework to a broader group of countries. The ISA also offers us an opportunity to build a new international consensus on new trade rules that more reflect the world of global trade today. I believe this is particularly significant because the WTO's central role as a cornerstone of the multilateral trade system depends on our capacity to advance creative and ambitious approaches to trade liberalization. It also gives us an opportunity to work to advance policies that respond to the growing nexus between trade in goods and trade in services. And this applies to services that enable the free flow of goods across borders, as well as information communications technology products that seamlessly combine the two. Commercial trends are heading toward increasingly global services offered anytime, anywhere over digital platforms. But in too many markets around the world, there persist barriers that put an artificial ceiling on the economic growth and jobs that digital products can create. Current negotiating efforts within the Trans-Pacific Partnership, for example, are aimed at crafting an ambitious agreement and tackling many of these 21st century challenges. And I won't go too much into that, but you should know we just concluded our 14th round of negotiations in Leesburg, Virginia, and we continue to make extraordinary progress. People asked how we're doing and when we're going to conclude. And one lesson I learned at the mayor, the most important thing is have willing partners. And when you particularly look at the diversity of the countries involved, from Australia and Brunei and Chile to Malaysia, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, and Vietnam, and very soon we're going to be excited to welcoming our colleagues from Canada and Mexico. The fact that each of these countries has committed extraordinary time and people and resources through 14 rounds speaks well of our commitment to try to get this agreement done and get it done sooner, but without abandoning the ambition that we all share for it. We welcome in particular Mexico and Canada and expect that their participation will further enhance the strength of our agreement, and which will cover all services and include robust commitments to address new barriers our service suppliers are facing in foreign markets. Our TPP partners are advancing a series of enhanced disciplines that will provide a level playing field for cross-border competition in digital service throughout the dynamic Asia-Pacific region. Let me give you just a couple of examples. Three of the most significant and troubling impediments to cross-border trade in information and communication technology services are: one, local establishment requirements; two, increasingly local data storage requirements; and third, restrictions on the flow of data across borders. Now, even for some of the largest companies involved in global commerce, they can have enormous challenges complying with these different data requirements in multiple jurisdictions. But especially because the services industry is more populated by entrepreneurs and first-generation businesses, this can have an absolutely crippling effect on smaller and startup and first-generation businesses trying to find their way into global commerce. And they just simply don't have the resources to begin to work through this, and just will go ahead and write off the whole notion of being involved in global trade. Now, to be sure, a number of proposals under consideration recognize that a limited set of data restrictions stem from legitimate regulatory objectives, like every country and economy's responsibility to protect the privacy and enforcement of laws and regulations. But our challenge and our responsibility is to make sure that we come up with the proper balance, that we allow the free flow of this data and this trade while we preserve the ability of regulatory authorities to act in the interest of their public good. And hopefully we can get that balance and get it done soon. We've also taken advantage of the opportunity to use the APEC Forum to advance many of these issues. APEC is a wonderful laboratory for the incubation and socialization of new concepts and trade liberalization, and many of the cutting-edge concepts that we are addressing and trying to advance today through TPP and Geneva and others have been incubated in the APEC Forum. We recently concluded the APEC Leaders Forum in Vladivostok, Russia. We made great progress across a number of important issues, including our continued commitment and effort to improve supply chain performance by making it faster, cheaper, and easier to move goods throughout the region. Ministers also committed to promote innovation policy that is non-discriminatory and market-driven. And moving forward, the United States is eager to seize the full potential of our trade and investment relations on bilateral arenas as well. And we are very, very welcoming of the fact that Russia is now a member of the World Trade Organization. We're a little bit prideful of the fact that we think that our bilateral work with Russia paved the way for us completing the working party report and putting ourselves in a position to be able to welcome Russia at our 8th ministerial meeting in Geneva last month. That's why it's especially troubling that I now stand before you and tell you the United States is not going to have the ability to apply that agreement because our Congress has not moved to repeal, or at least have the Jackson-Vanik Amendment not apply to Russia. All of you in this room know what that means, but we will continue to encourage Congress. We need to repeal Jackson-Vanik and grant Russia permanent normal trade relations status so you have the full advantage of Russia's membership, and more, just as critically, we have the ability to take advantage of the dispute settlement provisions that will apply to Russia and every other member. The administration has been working with Congress. I will, in the interest of some, trying to keep some degree of decorum and civility, won't make a comment about the fact that Congress is going to leave tomorrow and not come back till after the election. But we hope when they do, as many issues as they're going to be on the table, that Congress will move immediately to repeal Jackson-Vanik's application, or terminate Jackson-Vanik's application with Russia and grant Russia permanent normal trade relations status. We're also excited about pursuing trade liberalization and services in what is spectacularly our largest economic relationship, and that is our transatlantic relationship with the European Union. We have been working through a high-level working group that President Obama and European leaders commissioned over a year ago to explore every opportunity to further liberalize trade in these two important markets. It bears noting, again, foreign direct investment in the European Union was worth more than $2 trillion just last year alone. And the EU holds more than $1.5 trillion of investment in the United States. Through the Transatlantic Council and other forums, we worked very hard, for example, to reach an agreement on common principles for trade and ICT services and investment respectively, but we are committed to doing even more, and we hope to be able to have an announcement soon on the proper vehicle that we will move forward with a complete liberalization of trade between these two important partners. We also continue to work to pursue services liberalization with other partners through our bilateral investment treaties. We have concluded work on our model bit. We have re-engaged China, for example, on discussions. We're talking to new partners like Ghana and Cambodia and Russia and the East African community, and we also want to use this critical tool as a way to take these open shots to which I referenced. Finally, we want to make sure we fully realize the benefits and potentials of the trade agreements that you worked so hard to help us pass last year with Korea, Colombia, and Panama. Thanks to some remarkable work by our team at USTR, we were able to bring 2 of these agreements into force as quickly as any as we've ever done in March of last year with our colleagues from Colombia in May with our colleagues in Korea, and then May in Colombia. I know for many of you, the excitement about the Colombia agreement is the fact that Colombia has almost a $600 billion services market. And our ambassador, our good friend and colleague you'll hear from in a minute, and I have talked almost monthly about our excitement about how well this agreement is working. And we think that's an extraordinary opportunity for the services industry. But likewise, there are similar opportunities with Colombia and soon to be Panama as well. I could not conclude without saying a word about our relationship with China. It is complex, it is promising, but it's also here to stay. And it is going to be maddeningly frustrating at times, but we hope it will always be equally exciting. But you should know that we are committing to using all of our tools, all of our engagements with China, from our strategic and economic dialogue, our Joint Commission on Commerce and Trade, and where we have to through the WTO to fully realize the benefits of our having asked and invited China to be a part of the World Trade Organization. We did make progress on some issues. For example, in our last JCCT, all of you know what an extraordinary auto industry China has, but through the JCCT, we did get China to commit to open up its market for certain mandatory auto insurance. There is so much more to do. Just know that we are absolutely committed and resolved to working with China and working with other partners to get them to continue to open up their economy and also to have them embrace and understand how we can help them grow, and that it's no threat. And in fact, it can be an extraordinary asset to them implementing their own long-term plans. I want to conclude on a matter totally unrelated to this, but at least remind you that it's only been, even though this industry was founded in 1982, it was only 20 years earlier than that, after that Congress directed President Kennedy to create an office within the executive office of the president that did nothing but trade. So next month, on October 11th, we're going to celebrate the 50th anniversary of USTR. We've invited, and we have videos up with every one of our predecessors that we could, talking about the importance of this, but we've also invited you to come on board and share your thoughts about what we've done well, what we can do differently in the future. But we are committed to pressing forward because businesses across America and around the world aren't waiting on government to move forward with innovation. You constantly seek new customers and more markets for your latest products, and we want to be a partner with you in doing that. We're proud of how far we've come. We understand we have so much more work to do, but I know working with all of you, working with our partners, that we can continue to build a world in which families, consumers benefit from the benefits of global trade and innovation, but that we can harness the power of trade and services to open up economies and create jobs here in America and all across the globe. So thank you all for being with us for this 4th Summit, and I look forward to welcoming the comments of my colleagues on the next panel. Thank you.